Welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I'm Steve Harper, and with me, as always, is my co-host Donna Carlin. How are you doing, Donna?
I'm good. I'm really good. Time's going by in a blink, and knowing that, the Wednesdays happen with you, it sort of gives me my anchor. It's
Yeah.
terrific.
I mean, for those that don't know this, we premiere our episodes on Tuesdays, but we always record on Wednesdays. So this is kind of like the highlight of my week. It's one of the perfect midpoints. As the down here in the U.S. they call it Hump Day, right? It's they get over the
Yeah.
hump to get towards the weekend. But this is always something I look forward to because we always have such interesting topics and great conversations. So what are we talking about today?
You had to bring up Hump Day. Now I'm thinking of my favorite commercial with the camel
Oh
that,
yeah,
that
yeah,
comes
yep.
into the room, and then
Mike,
it's
Mike,
Hump
Mike, Mike,
Day.
Mike, Mike, Mike.
I know, I love that commercial. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Now I
that's a
sort
good
of
one.
fast forward through them as I tape everything.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that to the public, but anyway. So this is a little bit of a different slant to what we've been speaking about over the last few weeks. And that is, are you not reaching your financial goals because of beliefs or resources?
Oof.
And, I maintain that if you put the right people in the right place or the right resources in the right place, you could create wealth no matter what.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, I think that this would be a good conversation to have with our listeners, whether or not they're in the business world. People budget for all kinds of things. Are you budgeting for the right things? And are you putting your money behind the right things in
Yeah.
order to build wealth for your future, for your present, for your business, whatever? So I was curious that how does that sit with you?
It's really a unique concept because I think a lot of times people are we come from a mindset, at least a lot of folks that I work with come from a mindset of lack. We get to a certain level of earning potential or power. And you think, I think back to when I first started out in the business world, if I could only get to X, and then I get to X, and it's like, if I could only get to Y, and you're always reaching for something that's just outside your grasp. And funny how, when I was, at a certain point where if I could just get to X, I'd have all my problems figured out. I'd have everything, exactly the way I need it. And then you get there and then somehow you move the goalposts.
Mm,
You spin to your level of, earning. And now all of a sudden you're not putting enough away for college or retirement or whatever the, particular future expenses might be. And so now you have to strive for the next thing rather than actually recognizing and enjoying where you're at right then and there and making some accommodations for it. And I think that for us here, especially in the US, everybody has this mindset of you need more, 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 more. And that more comes at a cost. And that more often, compromises so much else. Kathy and I, my wife, we talk about before we had kids why we didn't realize how many vacations we could have taken that wouldn't have had to cost so much money. We didn't take them notoriously because we were trying to build a business and more focused on trying to make payroll. But, we could have gone to a state park, which was next to nothing on a weekend or over a long, weekend, kind of for not a ton of money, but the experience would have been worth its weight in gold. Instead, all we did was sit at home, and then we found still some way to spend the money that we didn't really need to be spending on junk and stupid stuff. And it really is kind of now we've gotten to a certain point, and you look back and you realize, gosh, wish I'd known then what I know now. But yet we still make stupid decisions in our current present position about that, about our future and where we need and what we need. And I don't know, it's a really interesting perspective because especially in our society, there never seems to be enough. And no matter where you're at, you always seem to be pushed to want to have more.
that's it. And if you literally pare down what it is that you spend discretionary dollars on, it's amazing the quality of life that you could have
Hmm.
without lacking. And when I teach, I go, I go to absolutes because I want the people who do what we do to really recognize that our mindset is not necessarily the mindset of the clients that we work with. And it also happens, though, in my field. So when I'm teaching and I go, there's the feeling of scarcity, or you say lack.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you shift from scarcity to abundance? What is it in your mindset that you need to do in order to do that? If a coach or somebody going into the business of coaching has a scarcity mindset, they will take on every client that they could possibly take on
Yes.
because they're so afraid that they're not going to make a living. They're
Whether
not
they're a
working.
good fit or not for that client, by the
Exactly.
way.
That's exactly right. They might not be the best
Yeah.
fit for the coach either. I
Yeah.
mean, I actually choose my clients, especially over the last 10 years, who will stretch me in some way, shape, or form. And then I recognize that the ones that I loved working with were in an area that I had absolutely no knowledge of. And the amount that I learned was astronomical. Like, I'm going to bring up politics, Canadian politics. It's not, I could say it's not much better these days than what's going on in the US. But, that aside, people have an idea or a presumption of what happens in the world of politics. And until I worked in the political realm with elected federal officials, I didn't know that, what their lives were like. And when they, like, people would make a statement based on what they were upset about, I would say, do you recognize that political leaders have absolutely no say in what they do with their time, their life, or anything else? It's absolutely dictated for them in 15-minute increments. And they would look at me, how do you know that? Because I work in that realm.
Mm-hmm.
And I would learn so much. I would learn about development. I would learn about the environment, all these things because of the people I worked with. If I just took on any client wanting to have a better life, and that's what they would throw at me, I'm not a life coach anyway. I am an executive coach, which is a huge difference. Um, I would, constantly help people over the hump of what wasn't working in their life. I wouldn't grow. I wouldn't bring anything new to the table for my next client. But because I was operating from scarcity, if I was, because I needed to make a living, get those dollars in, I'd be taking on all the wrong people. When you
Yep.
come from abundance, you're learning, you're growing. The next client you go to, you could say, I have experience of public health and pandemics. Oh my goodness, then you know what we're living. We want you.
Mm-hmm.
And it would absolutely align me with more and more work. I've never had to market my work because I come from abundance. And that's what I attract to myself. So, looking at it through that lens, if you're always worried about making a living and that fear, it's fear-based decision making, then it's your belief system that is standing in your way of actually making more money, having a more fulfilled life and a more abundant life. That doesn't necessarily mean filled with the what do you call it, materialistic
Sure.
stuff, right?
What? So I'm curious. What do you say to someone who's out there that's like, yeah, well, that's you're running your own business, Steve. You're running your own business. You guys are entrepreneurs. You sort of get the opportunity to kind of carve out your future the way you want to do it. Grow your business. But I'm stuck in a job. I have a ceiling to my position. I have a boss ahead of me that is gonna, impact my financial future. What do you say to somebody who feels like they don't have that direct control over, abundance?
That's actually something that I'm writing about right now. Go for a side hustle. I'm not kidding. Like, I remember 100 years ago when I was looking for an orchestral job. I mean, how many positions are there for percussionists in orchestras? It's not the violin section. Never mind a female, that's a whole other story. So I knew that I needed a job to fund, my life until I had the job of my dreams, which was an orchestra job. And even when I had the orchestra job, how many, concerts would I be a part of as a percussionist and not a timpanist? So there was another parameter that held me back from actually making a living from it. So I would have a side hustle, and I always had a side hustle, whether it was as a pastry chef, whether it was as a bookkeeper way back when before computers. I would do people's books, whatever it took, so that I would still do what I love doing, and I was able to make a living.
Yeah.
Then when I changed professions, because I was voluntold that I was going to be changing professions and going back to school and everything else, I always wondered what else could I do in order to augment my income, because I also had to take care of Michael, who was post-op all the time. And that was as a pastry chef. I was doing wedding cakes and that kind of stuff on the side, making extra money. And I love doing that too. So figure out what your side hustle could be, where you could make that extra money that'll fund your vacations and fund extra things until maybe another position in another company comes up that you say, you know what, I'm perfect for that. I'm going to try out for it. There's so many ways of doing it where you're not only stuck doing your job. And then I know that the next thing is going to be that you're going to throw at me, well, I work 6 days a week or I work 24 hours a day. You're in the wrong job if that's the case. I mean,
That's true.
that's the bottom line. So look at what your options are outside of what you're currently doing. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I love that perspective. I'd actually take a little bit of a different take, although I think that side hustle is a great way, because a lot of side hustles end up being your main hustle, right? You find that you
Yeah.
have a certain talent or a skill set that ends up manifesting into a true career path. So great advice there. I would, answer this question that I asked, a little bit differently, in that you walked in tomorrow and you don't have that job. Now, how abundant are
Mhm.
you?
Yeah.
Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, nothing will reset you more quickly than, what if I don't get that paycheck on Friday? And so, one of the things that you have to look at, I would say to that person that asked that question, which is just really me asking that question on behalf of someone who might be
Yeah.
might be asking that question, is you have to do a reset and understand where you are right now and how fortunate and lucky you are to have that paycheck, to have that job, that opportunity. And rather than, look at the negative, the downside of, well, I may only get to a certain salary range, or my boss may never give me a promotion, I may never get to, be that, senior vice president or run the company one day. But what I have today is pretty darn good, right? It pays the bills, keeps the lights on, it puts food on the table. It gives me the ability for me to do my 40 or 50 hours a week, that unfortunately, some of us have to do. But then look at all the time that I get off, or the flexibility I have when I'm not working. And, I think when I work with my coaching clients, is having this opportunity to push the reset button on perception and the perspective is really useful, because it helps them realize that, well, I work in a job that doesn't require that I work at home, or that I don't have to be on the clock 24/7. I don't have to be in that leadership role when things go bad, that, I have to come in on a Saturday or a Sunday, or I have to be, there in the middle of the night. I'm
Yeah.
fortunate that I get to do the role that I have, where I can leave that at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and I can go home and spend time with my family, and, go to the theater or go catch a movie or whatever. I think a lot of times people don't realize just how lucky they have, because we're so focused on what we don't have and where we want
Yeah.
to go, and what the lack that we have, that's sort of self-imposed. Not a lot of times is self-imposed in our own way of thinking, but a lot of times, and it goes back to many episodes that we've covered in this show, which is how we're comparing ourselves to what everybody else is doing out there in the world. And so I think that, it becomes a important exercise for you to do that reset and look at just how fortunate you are to have what you have right here and right now.
I remember going to an offsite with a client of mine and his assistant. And I remember, like, a lot of the feedback that I got about his assistant from him was that she was very good at her job, but she was such a downer. She was always complaining about things. Things were never, done well, picking on, people not measuring up, all of that stuff. And we get into the taxi going to the offsite, and she started complaining about, she needs a bigger apartment, and she needs a vacation, and she needs a new car, and like it just, and I could see his head go down, and he just wanted to
Oh, not
throttle,
again.
throttle her at this point. And then I said to her, what do you need? So she said, I need a vacation, I need a new car. I said, no, what do you need? And I could see he's now his head is down, trying not to crack up. There's
Hmm.
a difference, that different look from the back. And she says, I just told you I need a vacation, I need a new car. I said, what do you need? And she says, what are you trying to get at? Like I said, what do you need? Think for a moment. She says, I need a roof over my head. Yes, perfect. What else do you need? Food on the table. Right. What else do you need? Well, I guess good health. I said, okay, you're on the right track. Anything else that you need? She says, I think this is a trick question. I said, it's not a trick question. I want you to look at what you need. Everything that you shared with me, do you have those things? So she said, yes. I said, so your needs are met. She said, so where are you going with this? I said, everything else is wants.
Yep.
How many people in this world could list off what you listed that you have covered that they don't have?
They'd covet that. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
said, everything else is what you want. Wants are not needs. So when you say, I need a vacation, unless you're ready to crash and burn tomorrow, which doesn't seem apparent to me, you want a vacation. You don't need the vacation. And that mindset makes all the difference. And she said, I get it. And she really did. That moment she got it and she stopped complaining.
Well,
It was
that's great. I love
yeah,
that because I think if you couple that with your five whys, right? If you take, well, why do
yeah,
I need that vacation? I need a vacation. Okay. Why do you need the vacation? Why, you go
because I'm
through that
working
whole
100 hours a
sequence.
week.
Yeah.
Am I working 100 hours a week? Because I don't prioritize. Why
Yeah.
don't you prioritize? And you just keep drilling down. Is
Or
it
I
these
don't
five
delegate, or
whys?
I don't ask for help, or I don't, I'm not doing what I need to be doing,
I get
to
distracted,
improve my
etc.
situation. Yeah. The,
That's
the, the
right.
beautiful thing about it is it takes the power away from all of those situations really quickly, just like you did in that short cab ride. You really get down to the heart of the issue, right? The heart of the matter. And like you said, is it a want or is it a need? And really helping them recognize that, I'm sitting here complaining about this when a dozen other people wish they were as lucky as I am, or that they have what I have, or that the
That's right.
job that I feel like I'm never going anywhere, not going to get any further ahead, is coveted by somebody else who's never had the opportunity to have this type of job, who's been lucky enough to work with the team or the boss or for the kind of company or organization that I work for today. It resets the expectation and really helps you really appreciate what you have. Doesn't mean that we're suggesting that you don't want to have wants in life or that you don't have dreams and ambition, but it does help you to recognize where you are today, how fortunate you are to have what you have. And then if that's still not good enough, then what are you going to do about it? And how are you going to put things in motion to, rather than complain about it, but to take action towards improving whatever that is for you? I think that's a real critical piece.
And have the conversation with yourself. They're really funny conversations. Okay, I really would like these $300 pairs of shoes, which you'll never hear out of me. But anyway, I'm using that as an example. Okay, so what would you prefer to have? It's an either or kind of thing. Would you prefer to have that $300 pair of shoes, or would you love to have that fabulous vacation? Oh, I'd love to have that fabulous vacation. Okay, take that $300 and put it in a vacation fund.
Yep.
Fast forward. Do I want that um, new, I don't know, shiny teapot? I mean, some people collect things, right? And
Yep.
they see a teapot, they're going to buy the teapot because it'll add to their collection. Do you want that shiny teapot for 150 bucks? Or are you still aiming to have that great vacation? Yep, it's going into the vacation fund, which is getting interest as they go. And time comes to have a vacation. You don't have to scour, your piggy bank to try to figure out where am I going to get the money from. All of a sudden, you have a few $1,000s that you could play with to go on vacation. If you allocate your funds in the right way and have those inner conversations with yourself, you will always have what you need in order to live a fulfilling life.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll have a truer appreciation for the abundance that you have for that life, right? That's the
Exactly.
key. So I love this. This is a great conversation. I would be really interested to hear what our audience has to say about this. Did it shift a perspective? Did it give you some additional motivation or insights on how you should be approaching this for your own life? or are we full of beans? We're open to any and all feedback. So Donna, how can they share that with us?
Okay, the full of beans is about the imposter syndrome, which we spoke about last week. So don't go there. Okay,
Well, you can tell us, but we're not going to buy into it because clearly, if you listen
there
to the
you go.
last episode, we don't buy into
Perfect.
any of that.
Join our Facebook group, Inquiring Minds, with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper. Let us know what you think. Excuse me, what you'd like us to discuss, and if you think we're full of it, whatever you'd like to share. But be nice if you can, even if you tell us that we're full of it.
Yeah,
And we want you to join our Inquiring Minds family, because it would be great to hear your perspectives and anything that you would like us to discuss as well.
absolutely. That we would love that. Well, Donna, this has been a great episode. Thank you so much for the great conversation. We'll be back again with another episode of Inquiring Minds very soon. But until then, Donna, take care.
You too. Have a good one.